have to make decisions about what to include and what not to include. So as I'm reading this, and you've sort of unmoored the gag from genre in terms of comedy, from tone in terms of the question of laughter, the gag starts to become a universal theory of cinema, right? It becomes everything at a certain moment. So the question becomes, what is not a gag as we read this? And that, I think, is the crucial question that doesn't really fully get addressed. So I'm thinking about Eisenstein's vocabulary of attraction, for example, or how that gets picked up by Tom Gunning. That a lot of what Eisenstein is calling attractions in the original theater of attractions model was any emotional element, right, that provoked a response from the spectator. So if we think about the Odessa Steps in Battleship Potemkin, a scene that I think most of us in this room will know, we could read certain elements there as having gag-like parts, right? We could picture the woman with the baby carriage. We set up anticipation. Does the baby carriage go down the steps? You know, what's going to happen to the baby? What's the outcome of the baby? We set up a certain we see a repetition or variation of the mother carrying her dead child up the steps as opposed to the baby rolling down the steps. We have a dynamism of space, but do we actually want to think of those moments as gags? Or do we want to have is there a distinction that still needs to be made between the attraction, the emotion that's created around those isolated moments that have some gag-like structures in them, and what we would call a gag? Return to the game world. Are all puzzles, challenges, memorable moments in games gags? Or are there certain kinds of, or is gag a specific kind of borrowing from cinema that carries over into the game world? And so the question of being even more precise about what the gag is and what the gag isn't as it relates to other things. You mentioned in your opening excess, Kristen Thompson's notion of excess. Is all excess gags, or can we distinguish gags as a specific kind of excess? Or can we think about spectacle and gags? And are all spectacles gags, or are there something that needs to be teased out there? So that seems to be a cluster of problems that I think we really want to think about. A second cluster of a second area, and this is probably a dangerous thing to do, is tell you areas to grow. But the part of the theory of the gag that's maybe not here is that had to do with the body and identity. I mean, it's here and all through the dissertation. But much of the work I have done in comedian comedy studies has dealt with performance and gags rather than narrative and gags. And the work of Steve Seidman and Frank Krutnick sort of set us up in this world where the character becomes incoherent.